Welcome to the Book of Life, a show about Jewish people and the books we read. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. In this December 2006 episode of our podcast, we celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah. We'll hear from Stephen Krensky and Greg Harlin, author and illustrator of Hanukkah at Valley Forge, about George Washington's encounter with a Jewish soldier. Nora Guthrie, Woody Guthrie's daughter, will tell us about a new CD on which the Klezmatics perform Guthrie Hanukkah songs. We'll speak to Deborah Heiligman, author of the non-fiction picture book Celebrate Hanukkah with Light, Latkes and Dreidels. And finally, we'll announce the winner of the Book of Life holiday book drawing. So light your candles and settle in for some Hanukkah fun. Hanukkah at Valley Forge, published this year by Dutton, recreates a moment in history when General George Washington learned about Hanukkah from a soldier in the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. Author Stephen Krensky draws striking parallels between the American fight for freedom and the Maccabee struggle with tyranny. Illustrator Greg Harlin's amazing watercolors bring both eras brilliantly to life. We spoke to Stephen and to Greg by phone about their beautiful picture book creation.
Greg, tell us about Hanukkah at Valley Forge.
It tells the story of George Washington learning about Hanukkah through another soldier's celebration of it. And I really learned about Hanukkah. I felt like I was coming at it with fresh eyes, just like George Washington in the story, and really appreciated hearing its history and just the depth of the symbolism in it. Really touched me, too.
Stephen, how much of the story is true?
It's interesting to talk about how much of it is true. As far as I know, none of it is untrue. It was reported in a visit that Washington made to a Jewish merchant's house. It was Hanukkah, and when the merchant said to Washington, by way of explanation of the traditions that they were sharing in the meal, Washington supposedly said, "Oh, I know about Hanukkah because of the soldier," and then told the story. So in that sense, it's hearsay, but none of it is something that I was making up in order to make it a good story.
Greg, why do you specialize in historical illustrations?
It's sort of funny that while I was in school, history was not something I was particularly interested in, but then when I did given assignments to illustrate specific things, that the history, there's so much life, it's easy to get involved in any project that I've been given.
Do you have a favorite time period to illustrate?
Actually, more of an ancient history. Stories that are actually related to the Bible. There are some other jobs that I've worked on like that seem like they're involved in telling a specific story, but they're also really, just as importantly, talking about a spiritual theme. I like the combination when both of those are trying to live in the same picture. So ancient history, I guess.
I think Greg's illustrations help really bring the story to life. One of the ways in which it does this quite dramatically is through the changes in color from the scenes at Valley Forge, which are winter scenes, and the colors are blues and grays. Then you move back in time to the Maccabees, and of course it's a whole different part of the world, a whole different climate, and so there are many yellows and golden colors. The contrast between the two, I think, visually makes the book very striking.
Why is it significant that George Washington knew about the holiday of Hanukkah?
Well, one of the things that attracted me to the idea of turning it into a book were the parallels between the idea of Hanukkah, and meaning, what it commemorates, and how that corresponds to what was going on during the Revolution. The parallels of what it's like to be under the thumb of a faraway king, simple parallels perhaps, but still that make the two stories kind of resonate together.
I really like the two stories going on at once, how it shows the continuity. It's not a holiday just of remembering something in the past, but how it's living from generation to generation. Just that little humble candlelight that kind of goes through, and when painting it, how powerful that little part of a painted picture could be with the little light, how much that brought a sense of hope no matter how much gloominess I painted around it. That was sort of a fun thing to see and experience.
Can you tell us more about George Washington's relationship with the Jewish community of colonial America?
Washington seemed to have, particularly for his era, a very open-minded point of view. We do have evidence of Washington during the Revolution, but also later as president, showing a pretty enlightened attitude toward religion and religions other than his own, and specifically toward Judaism, and visits that he made to a synagogue in Rhode Island and in actual letters that still do exist, showed a lot of respect and regard for other people and how they worshipped.
George Washington's face is so well known. Did that make it easier or harder to illustrate this book?
That's an interesting question. While I was working on this, I found out that there was a big project taking place at Mount Vernon where they were recreating George Washington at various points in his history, that we have this misconception of him being just this one face. They were spending millions of dollars to analyze his portraits and kind of backdate them to how old he would have been. And I just didn't feel qualified to try to change it myself. Working on this, it was sort of shocking to me to see this face that we know from the dollar bill or whatever coming alive. I got a bust of George Washington and use that as something I could be looking at and turn around and light differently and things like that. That made a big difference in trying to recreate him as a living person.
It's a little daunting to go and put words in characters' mouths, particularly Washington being such an iconic figure. One of the things that I tried to do was to actually use his own words, because there's plenty of examples, mostly through his diaries, of Washington talking, so to speak, and in some cases was able to incorporate some of his turns of speech into his dialogue. One specific example, in one of the letters that he wrote to the synagogues, referred to the Jews as the children of Abraham. And so it's not me coming up with that as a phrase to sound, old-fashioned or colonial. This is actually the way Washington referred to Jews.
Greg Harlin, Stephen Krensky, thanks so much for speaking with us, and Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, and Happy Hanukkah to you, too.
It's Hanukkah, Hanukkah, round and around. Honey cake, Hanukkah, eat them down. Latkes and goody things all over town. It's Hanukkah, Hanukkah time. It's Hanukkah, Hanukkah, shaking my hand. My candles are burning all over this land to light the dark road for the man passing by. It's Hanukkah, Hanukkah time.
Did you know that Woody Guthrie, the famous activist and folk singer, wrote Jewish music? He was married into a Jewish family. 2 new CDs feature Woody's Jewish-themed songs performed by the Klezmatics. Wonder Wheel is about life on Coney Island, and Happy Joyous Hanukkah is, of course, about the holiday of Hanukkah. We spoke to Nora Guthrie, Woody Guthrie's daughter and director of the Woody Guthrie Foundation and Archives, about Happy Joyous Hanukkah.
It's all right, it's Hanukkah, Hanukkah time.
Nora, how did your father, Woody Guthrie, come to write these Hanukkah songs?
Well, we were living in Coney Island filled with Yiddish-speaking Russian Jewish immigrants. One of those people was my grandmother, Elisa Greenblatt, who was a Yiddish-speaking poet. We called her Bubby. So he kind of picked up Jewish culture, recipes, everything like that from a lot of our neighbors, people in the streets, and probably most importantly was my grandmother. My grandma wrote Yiddish songs, and my father actually illustrated a number of her songs. They had planned to collaborate because my dad was also a graphic artist. And they had planned to do a songbook. It was never published, but there was always this kind of easygoing back and forth between them. My grandmother would send my father one of her lyrics for him to critique, and he would write her back saying, take out this verse, put this over there, sing the chorus 3 times through, blah, blah, blah. So they were really collaborators and critiques of each other's work.
How did the Klezmatics get involved in recording the songs?
Well, I contacted the Klezmatics a couple of years ago because I had a pile of these funny Hanukkah songs that Woody had written through the eyes of someone who wasn't Jewish. And, it just has a unique Woody perspective. So I contacted them because I just thought they would be the perfect band to incorporate understanding of who Woody was at this time in New York when he was living here in the 1940s and 50s. And it was really important to me that there be a band that had this kind of multicultural experience, so they were just a perfect match. We did a concert with the Hanukkah songs about 2 years ago before we ever did a recording of them at the 92nd Street Y in Manhattan, and actually Arlo was a part of that too because we loved our Bubby. On a personal note, the fact that this takes us back and reminds us and we dream of and we remember our Bubby is probably kind of the unspoken reason why we're doing all this, because we had such a great relationship, my father and my grandmother and my mother, coming from such different cultures, one from Oklahoma Protestant and then this Russian Jewish immigrant. So for us, it's kind of this wonderful blending of our personal memories as well. And that's how the project really started.
Do you think the final results with this CD sounds like what we think of as Woody Guthrie music, and should it?
Oh, not at all. It shouldn't sound like Woody. You know, my favorite thing is that he would usually write on the bottom of a lyric something just absolutely wonderfully cute and disarming in a way. He would say, I hope you sing it your way with your instruments, or do it with your own whoop and holler. You know, just some little annotation or something at the bottom. So after you've looked at 2,000 or 3,000 of his lyrics like I have, I can tell you definitively that his joy was in writing the song. He called his lyrics the seeds of man. When someone would take the seed of this song and then, what he would say, harvest it, then you can reap the bounty. So I think he absolutely would have felt, loved these particular songs by the Klezmatics, because they're so fleshed out, they're so rich, they're so joyous, and even more importantly, they make you want to sing and dance. And that was his goal in life, is to get people to sing and dance.
Oh, that's great. Did your father write songs for any other Jewish holidays?
Yeah, he did. He wrote, I'm trying to remember off the top, he wrote 3,000 songs, so sometimes it's a little hard for me to grab them out of the air. But he did write some songs about Rosh Hashanah and some other holidays, too. And we'll probably record those a little bit down the road, too.
Do you have any particular favorite tunes on this Hanukkah CD?
I particularly like the ones that I can dance to, because I've been looking at these lyrics most of my life, and I've never heard them. When I heard the first demo that the Klezmatics did, I was crying for joy because, like I said, my father's intention was to get people up and dancing and singing. Sometimes when people think of Woody Guthrie, they don't think of getting up and dancing. They'll think of some kind of somber, long political kind of ballad or something like that. But that's what we did at home. We got up and we sang and danced to these songs with my mother playing the piano. So when I first heard the Klezmatics version of some of these songs, and they're so rhythmic, I jumped off the chair. I was just floored, the energy and the spirit that they put into that. It's Hanukkah, you know that one, but so humorous and danceable. And any particular one, no, but I just like the whole album.
What would your father think of this CD?
He would get up and dance. He would love it. It's so fun. It has a lot of wit and nuance and humor in it, too. That's what I like because of that depth. It's not just for Jewish people to play on Hanukkah. When he sings Hanukkah's Flame, let the light of my menorah shine outside my window, and either it will invite you to come in, or if not, it'll light your way on the path to where you're going. And that's essentially a true Woody thought.
Beautiful.
Happy Hanukkah. One of the many things that we always had with this project was, how do you spell Hanukkah? Because Woody spelled Hanukkah in 99 different ways. And he was also very liberal and very creative with his spelling. Editors years later were always trying to correct it and say, man, this guy couldn't spell. But the truth is, he kept changing it because it's one N or two Ks or with an H or a CH or whatever. It really doesn't matter. The truth is not in the spelling. It's in the feeling and in the expression.
Nora Guthrie, it's been a joy to speak with you, and happy Hanukkah.
Happy Joyous Hanukkah. And to you, too.
How many nights for Hanukkah? Happy Joyous Hanukkah. Nights and days, days and nights. Happy Joyous Hanukkah. Hey to the nights of Hanukkah. Happy Joyous Hanukkah. Hey to the days and hey to the nights. Happy Joyous Hanukkah.
Celebrate Hanukkah with Light, Latkes and Dreidels is the first in a new nonfiction holiday series by Deborah Heiligman, published by National Geographic. With a publisher like that, you can expect gorgeous international photographs, and this book does not disappoint. We spoke to Deborah by phone at her home in New York.
Deborah, tell us about your new book, Celebrate Hanukkah.
Celebrate Hanukkah with Latkes and Dreidels is part of a series that I'm doing with National Geographic called Holidays Around the World. The first 4 that have just been published are Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, Diwali, Ramadan, and Eid al-Fitr. Then celebrate Passover, Easter, Independence Day, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Halloween, and Christmas.
Does it feel different when you work on the non-Jewish holiday books versus the Jewish holiday books?
It does feel different. When I write about the Jewish holidays, I am right there. But they're really told in first person, and I'm doing that for each of the books. So, for example, when I was writing the book about Diwali, which is a Hindu holiday that's also called the Festival of Lights, by the way, I had to put myself in that tradition to write it, which was fascinating and wonderful for me.
The photographs in this book are very striking. They show Jews of many colors celebrating Hanukkah in many countries. How are these photos selected?
I just have to give all the credit to Lori Epstein, who's the photo editor at National Geographic. She looks at my text, and she starts looking for photographs through agencies that take photos all over the world. We have Jews in Ghana, Uganda, Italy, the U.S., and Israel. A picture of a Hanukkah card from South Korea. We have Jews lighting candles on a rooftop in India. We have a young man saying morning prayers in Peru. A Jewish astronaut named Jeffrey Hoffman, who was in space and brought a dreidel with him and is spinning in space. And in the photograph, you can see that it's upside down. Really amazing photographs from all over the world.
Do you have a favorite among the photographs that ended up in the book?
I do. It's this boy named Samson, and he's African in Uganda, and he's looking out his window. He's got a kippah on and a big smile on his face, and next to him is a Jewish star that says Shalom in both English and Hebrew. And the call-out that I wrote for that page is "We are proud to be Jewish," and I just love this page so much. And that happens to also be the page that has the Hanukkah card from South Korea on it from 1951.
What was the most interesting thing you learned as you did the research for this book?
The story of Hanukkah starts with Judah Maccabee and the fight to get back the temple. And once they got back the temple, what they really wanted to do was observe their most important holiday back then, which you might be surprised to learn was Sukkot. It was an agrarian society, and the harvest festival was the most important holiday. And they celebrated Sukkot for 8 days. And then the following year, they celebrated Sukkot at the regular times in the fall. But when winter came around, they said, boy, that was really nice to have a festival in the winter. Let's do it again. Let's make a new festival, and let's call it dedication or rededication, which is what Hanukkah means. And so they celebrated Hanukkah for 8 days. Years later, during the time of when we didn't have the Second Temple, the rabbis really did not want to focus on anything militaristic, and they wanted people to be thinking about holy things and to be studying and not fighting to get back the temple. So they said, you know, the story of Hanukkah really is not about the military victory. It's about standing up for what we believe in, and it's also about this little bit of oil that lasted for 8 days. And that's what we really should be focusing on. And so that's how the miracle of the oil became a part of the Hanukkah story.
What would you say is the most important thing people should know about Hanukkah?
You know, that photograph I was describing before about Samson, we are proud to be Jewish. Another thing that I've learned about Hanukkah that I guess I knew at one point but I forgot is that we're supposed to put our menorahs in the window to show the world the miracle. And I think the miracle for me is that the Maccabees fought for what they believed in, and they won. And I think that we should always fight for what we believe in and be proud to be Jewish. To me, that's the meaning of Hanukkah.
Deborah Heiligman, thanks so much for speaking with us, and Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you, Heidi, and Happy Hanukkah to you.
Hey, Hanukkah, Hanukkah, 1, 2, 3, Hanukkah, Hanukkah, ABC, Hanukkah, Hanukkah, 4, 3, 2, makes me love you, makes me love you.
Mazel tov to Jason Gaines, winner of the Book of Life Holiday Book Drawing. An autographed copy of Deborah Heiligman's Celebrate Hanukkah with light Latkes and Dreidels is coming your way. And thanks to all who participated in the drawing, in which we asked for your favorite Hanukkah titles. Books mentioned included I Have a Little Dreidel by Maxie Baum, Hanukkah by Ronnie Chotter, The Gift by Aliana Brodman, Elijah's Angels by Michael Rosen, and two by Mr. Hanukkah himself, Eric Kimmel, the classic Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins, and Jason's pick, The Magic Dreidels. Doesn't it just make you want to read and reread them all?
Makes me love myself, self, makes me love myself, self.
We want to hear from you. Let us know how we're doing, or share your opinions about the books and CDs reviewed on the show. You can now leave us a 2-minute voice recording via the web by clicking on the My Chingo button on our website at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. And as always, you can email me, Heidi Estrin, at heidi@cbiboca.org. The Book of Life is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries, promoting Jewish reading by supporting Judaic libraries and librarians. Visit them on the web at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band from Sacramento, California, whose CDs feature upbeat music from the Ashkenazic and Sephardic traditions with Brazilian, Gypsy, and Celtic influences. Borrow their CDs at the Feldman Library or buy your own copies at freilachmakers.com. To download episodes of the Book of Life podcast, visit us on the web at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. That's jewishbooks, one word, .blogspot.com. Links to the books and CDs mentioned on the show are available on this website. And thanks to Podlines, you can now listen to the latest episode of the Book of Life by telephone. Just dial 916-313-3820. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.